This is a single hectare of mangrove forest on the Indonesian coast. It holds immense ecological value, sequestering carbon and shielding the shoreline. With global corporations and governments pledging billions to nature, funneling a grant to protect this land seems like a straightforward transaction. But before a single dollar reaches the ground, the project protecting this land has to survive what is known as the reconciliation burden. The architects of global nature finance did not write one cohesive set of rules. They wrote several, each for a different purpose, on completely different timetables, without coordinating with one another. That leaves the immense job of making all these disconnected global frameworks fit together, entirely up to the local conservation project. Time meant for saving nature is spent managing bureaucracy. This model shows how those requirements stack up on our single hectare. First, the project has to prove a credible, measurable pathway to high-integrity carbon credits. Next, it must satisfy area-based conservation criteria set by international biological conventions. Then, to attract international buyers, the site needs to align with complex corporate sustainable finance taxonomies. Finally, the credits need official authorization from the host country's government under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, ensuring they can be legally counted toward international climate pledges. Every single one of these requirements is reasonable on its own, but when you converge them all onto one patch of dirt by design, you create an unnavigable regulatory gridlock for the applicant. We often assume compliance costs are financial, auditor fees, and environmental studies, but the heaviest cost is time. Each regime introduces a mandatory checkpoint, or gate. Almost all of these gates are held by institutions completely outside the project proponent's control. Take a recent marine protection grant in Madagascar. The project exceeded its community engagement targets by over 400%, but the official legal designation of the land recorded zero progress because a government gazettement decree stalled for years through elections and leadership changes. In Papua New Guinea and Zimbabwe, shifting national regulations completely froze existing carbon agreements. Projects were paused for years while entirely new rules were debated and written. These regimes stack multiplicatively in risk. 6 sets of rules form a chain where a single closed gate held by a sovereign government stalls every downstream effort, rendering the funding completely useless. Public rulemakers operate in strict silos. No mechanism exists to seamlessly run a financial taxonomy through an accounting standard into an area-based conservation target. To actually get capital deployed, private grant organizations have to invent temporary workarounds. The Blue Action Fund, a European philanthropic group, recently wrote a massive call for proposals that privately bridged carbon integrity, biodiversity targets, and national authorizations all into one unified document. But a private bridge has a hard limit. A funder can require an applicant to aim for national authorization, but they cannot legally compel a host country to grant it. They can write the rules, but they can't force the sovereign gates open. Gathering spaces for international standard setters, like the UN Biodiversity Conference shown here, have to be where the solution begins. The rule writers must harmonize their reporting and compliance rules upstream before passing them down. Until those global architects align their blueprints, the heaviest burden of saving nature will continue to fall on the local projects least equipped to carry it.